Hey everyone, this is Mr. Zach and welcome to our online children ministry program at Chinese Christian Union Church. As we want to continue to care and provide lessons for you all, I will now be making preschool videos for the younger audiences. So please be sure to check that out if you're in preschool or if you just want to see what they're doing as well. Which again is pretty similar to what the elementary school are doing, but just at a little bit slower pace, okay? So other than that, let's get into our lesson today. In case you guys all forgot, our unit that this month is called Zoom, because we are zooming in close into the first 5 books of the Bible, otherwise known as the Pentateuch. As last week we learned about the book of Genesis and learned how even though Adam and Eve sinned, separating humanity from God, we know that Jesus defeated sin later on so we can have a friendship with God again, restoring that relationship with humans and God. Though today we are in the second book of the Bible, which is the book of Exodus. So we're going to zoom in really close and look at different stories in Exodus, but we're also going to zoom out and look at the entire book of Exodus to show us about God as well. So let's zoom in. Actually, before we zoom in close to the book of Exodus, do any of you guys even know what the word Exodus means? When you say the word Exodus, what does it sound like? Well, the word Exodus means kind of what it sounds like. Exodus means to exit or to leave. And this book is called Exodus, is all about the biggest, most spectacular exit the world has ever known. So, as we look in the book of Exodus today, we're going to be doing the same exact activity as our unit is about Zoom. So, if you didn't watch the last video, I'll be showing you guys a picture of something really close up. It will zoom out every few seconds. Then after that picture zoomed out and we'll get to see the whole thing, I'll talk about it and explain what it means to the book of Exodus and what it also means to God as a whole. So, let's zoom in to our first one. It is a brick. Last week we heard how the Israelites moved to Egypt to escape from the famine and find food. After being in Egypt for 400 years, the Israelites' family had grown huge and outnumbered the Egyptians, and the new Pharaoh became scared that they were too powerful and that they would overtake the Egyptians. So he made the Israelites into slaves. He forced them to work all day long making bricks for their buildings. The Israelites, who were God's people, were going through terrible times. So let's continue our story of Exodus with our next picture. Let's go. It's a bush. And how does this relate to the book of Exodus? Well, one day a man named Moses was taking care of his sheep when he saw a burning bush. It was kind of weird. The bush was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. When Moses moved closer to check it out, God spoke to him through the bush. He told Moses to go to Pharaoh and tell him, "Let my people go." And even though Moses was totally scared of doing it, he agreed to do it. So let's see what happens next by looking at our next picture. It's a frog. And to explain how he went from a bush to a frog, well, when Moses told Pharaoh to let the Israelites go, Pharaoh pretty much just laughed and said, "No way. Dude, why would I do that?" So God sent 10 terrible plagues to destroy Egypt. And plagues were big things that caused a lot of people to go through troubling or distress. Kind of like what this pandemic is right now. It's kind of like a big plague. But God sent 10 plagues. He made frogs cover the entire land. God had Moses make the river water change into blood. Had gnats and flies everywhere. He made livestock die, cows and animals. People had boils, which were kind of like bad rashes. It hailed a lot, and that's not very common in Egypt. And there was locusts eating all the crops. And there was darkness, so no one could see anything. And these happened each day in these 10 periods. So even though the plagues had almost destroyed Egypt, the Pharaoh still wouldn't let the Israelites leave. So God sent one last horrible plague. The oldest son in every Egyptian family died. And when this happened, Pharaoh saw what had happened, and he finally agreed to let God's people go. So it's looking pretty good for the Israelites. So let's continue on in the book of Exodus. This was a pretty easy one. It is a coin or money. And on the way out of Egypt, God caused the Egyptian people to give the Israelites silver and gold. But then, a few days later, Pharaoh changed his mind about letting the Israelites go. He and his soldiers chased the Israelites all the way to the Red Sea. And though it looked like the Israelites were in big trouble as they had nowhere else to go, at the last minute, God used Moses to split the Red Sea in two. The Israelites walked across on dry ground, but when the Egyptians chased after them, the waters crashed down behind them and destroyed every last soldier. But that's not the end of the book of Exodus. So let's continue on to zoom in on what happened after. I think this was also an easy one, but it is a cactus. And on the other side of the Red Sea, the Israelites traveled through the hot desert. When they needed food, God caused bread and quail to fall from the sky. When they needed water, God caused water to pour from the rocks. When they needed direction, God gave them a pillar of fire and a pillar of smoke to follow. And when they needed rules, God gave the Israelites the 10 Commandments to follow. God gave the Israelites everything they needed, but they still complained. And because of their complaining, God made the Israelites wander around the desert for 40 years. In the book of Exodus, we see that God provided for the Israelites while they were in the desert. God provided the Israelites with money when they needed by causing the Egyptians to give them gold and silver. God provided the Israelites with direction by giving them a pillar of fire and smoke. God provided the Israelites with goods and water by making bread and quail fall from the sky and water pouring from the rocks. But God also provided a leader by giving them Moses. There were other ways that God provided for the Israelites, but these were just a few things that God provided. The book of Exodus shows us that God has the power to provide for all our needs. In fact, that's what our Bible verse is about, and that's what it talks about. So from Philippians 4:9, which says, "And my God will meet all of your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus." How many of your needs will God meet? From our Bible verse, it tells us that God will meet all of them. So think of a time when God has given everything you needed. It could be helping you physically, maybe helping you in a relationship with a friend, or maybe helping your emotions, such as giving you courage or strength during a difficult time. God has helped you in each of those situations, provided you with something that you needed. God has the power to provide, so we can trust that God will give us all that we need. God provides for our physical needs by giving us food and shelter. God provides our relations needs by giving us friends and a family. God provides for our emotional needs by giving us strength and courage. But best of all, God provides for our spiritual needs by giving us Jesus. In the same way that God helped the Israelites escape from Egypt and led them to an amazing new home, which is the Promised Land, God helps us escape from the sin and leads us to an amazing new home in heaven. Because of Jesus, we can now be with God forever. So, what I want you guys to remember from this lesson is that God will always provide for us when our needs are for Him. I'll see you guys around.